Thank you for joining us here at TRG. My name is Dave Foyer, Vice President of Technology, and I'm here to talk to you guys today about MDM, mobile device management. So here are the two guys I want to introduce you to.
My name is Alfredo Machado. I'm a channel manager with Datalogic. I've been with the company over 3 years now, and I'm channel manager for TRG, so very happy to be here.
So I'm Jason Pudlock. I'm with SOTI. I'm an account manager that works with TRG as a partnership, and been with SOTI for about 3 years and been in the mobility space for about 20 years. So thank you for having me and looking forward to the conversation.
So let's go ahead and start talking about total cost of ownership. One of the big topics is that a lot of our customers will look for device enrollment. So do you guys have anything to kind of share around device enrollment?
When customers purchase the mobile devices or whatever device where you can have an MDM, the process of enrolling that device is critical, right? Because you want to be up and running as fast as possible when making your investment and making sure the users can have a functioning device as soon as possible. So having an MDM is going to put that in place pretty fast, and it's going to help put a solution to the hardware itself. And by configuring one device, you can then deploy the rest of them and enroll the whole process within minutes. So in that sense, you're not going to spend too much time and lose productivity by doing the whole enrollment process.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So to elaborate on that, so you got the device enrollment time. So thinking about it from without an MDM and having an MDM, the big difference is the amount of time that it's going to take to configure devices. So you got to think about it could take up to half an hour to enroll a mobile device without an MDM, where once you have one enrolled, it could take a matter of minutes. So when you think of total cost of ownership, there's enrollment time, which kind of is the beginning of the life cycle, we'll call it, right? And then you got to think about the configuration, the cost to manage devices, just on in general, but also asset management, and those devices can be refreshed every couple of years, or they could be refreshed every 10 years. So when you think about it, the cost of a device and the way to manage it is more than just getting it enrolled and deployed. There's a full life cycle that needs to be considered.
Let's talk about configuration. A lot of our customers are looking for specific settings for the operating system. So a lot of these devices come out of the box. People like to adjust screen brightness, so on and so forth.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the need of every customer varies depending on the application they're using, what type of environment they're using the device in, and obviously the hardware itself, it's nothing without the software. So when the customer purchases that device, it's great to have a tool where you can configure the device to work the most efficient way possible. So making sure you're configuring the right applications, doing all the necessary tools and settings to make sure that once it's out of the box, it's pretty easy for the user to, I guess, start the whole process of getting accustomed to the device. So having an MDM in place, it's going to leverage that, and it's going to enable the customer to configure it as they need and start using it as soon as possible.
I think a big piece of the configuration is the kiosk mode, right? A lot of our customers are coming to us and saying, how do we get this device built and configured quickly, but also we want to make sure that everything's blocked from an end user perspective so that they cannot get into the settings, get into the Wi-Fi, and really, we'll just call it kind of screw up the device. So we're able to lock that out with an MDM.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think security is one of the main concerns, right? When deploying different devices in different locations, different users, there's a rotation of employees, et cetera. So you want to make sure that you can configure that device and protect the safety of the business as well.
So looking at the cost to manage device issues, there is a huge savings. Jason, is there things that you've most of your customers we've seen MDMs help in this way?
Absolutely. Right? Yeah, so just in general with not only the devices but applications specifically, when they're out in the field, to manage the devices is more than just the device itself. It's what's on the device, right? So when you think of OS updates, application updates, if you're running a major enterprise application on that particular device and you need to push an update, without an MDM, you're doing this by hand, and it's going to be very challenging. With an MDM, we push that latest update to a couple of the devices, test it, and then push it to the entire fleet, and it's done within a couple of minutes. So it saves astronomical amount of time. and resources.
How are you keeping these devices up to date with OS patches, zero-day vulnerabilities, and then application updates? And I feel that MDMs are the answer in order to be able to deliver that functionality down to those devices.
The need to make sure that you're having your product as updated as possible when there's any firmware update, updates with the operating system, with security patches, etc. You need to make sure you can do that as fast as possible across the entire fleet. So having an MDM, it's absolutely critical to do that. If not, like Jason was saying, right, you're going to have the manual process, which is going to take too much time, and it's going to have you lose resource and efficiency in the process. Being able to do that process immediately after you get an update and just communicate that and do that within minutes is going to make you as productive as you can be in the field.
Yeah. Another thing too is asset management. These are some big challenges I think that we've all heard from our customers. Would you like to add anything to that, guys?
Yeah, I think MDM. It's like we're saying, it's critical because it's going to let you as well understand how many devices you have, how many licenses, the status on those devices. If it was stolen, if it's lost, you can wipe that device immediately. So you'll attack any security concern you have. You'll get data on the status and the battery lifetime. So you want to extend the life cycle of the device as much as possible. It's going to give you right life statistics around the entire fleet you have out there, and then it's going to be easier to make decisions in a way that's going to save you money in the process.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things around asset management is customers a lot of times don't know where their devices are. Yeah. They're like, well, we've got 1,000 devices out there across the entire U.S. and it ends up they don't know where 30% of them are, and they haven't checked in or what have you. So when you think about it from even an asset management or end-of-life perspective, is when they go to refresh their devices, they don't even know how many they're actually going to need. So as a general rule across MDM, it plays a big life cycle in the end of life of the devices as well. So, but you're right, asset management when it comes to locating devices, pinging devices, and remoting into the devices as well. That's something we haven't talked about. And remote control is a feature with MDM that is probably the most powerful out of all of them. You're able to support these devices as if they're in the palm of your hands, but they could be anywhere in the world. So that's another feature we wanted to point out there.
So guys, when it comes to end-of-life refreshes, what are some of your experiences that you've seen?
I think nowadays there's plenty of options in terms of hardware. So you have different devices that are more user-friendly, and with the new operating systems out there, it's very easy for the user to get accustomed to them. So maybe the old technology or the previous devices were a little bit more complicated. When you had new employees come in and try to use those devices, the training process was probably way longer than nowadays. Yeah. Talking about the hardware right now, the different options out there are pretty user-friendly. We're seeing a lot of migration to Android, which is a very common operating system on the consumer end devices. So I think when we're talking about refreshing devices, we're in a position where it's a easier process than we were seeing before.
Yeah, I agree. I think with the deprecation of support on the old Windows CE devices that took place, I think this January, organizations are really left to go elsewhere, and that's the biggest refresh we're seeing just across all of our existing customers and new business that we're bringing on is relatively Android-based devices, and that's really the future of a lot of the mobility in general. So yeah, that's really what we're seeing around the refresh of devices today.
So, a lot of the different OSs that are out there, I think, Jason, as you were saying, is that you're seeing a big push from Windows Mobile and CE right off to Android. Are we seeing any other pushes to different operating systems as well? Or is that kind of the primary push?
I would say Android is the primarily push, at least with mobile devices. So other type of devices, yeah, we're seeing other operating systems. I would say that to your point, it's not necessarily forcing the refresh immediately. You can transition slowly, or depending on the application you're currently running with the devices. But I think that when the customer is making the investment, they need to think about the future, right? So not only what investment they're making today, so overall TCO, and then how can I support the upgrades in operating system in the following years? So nowadays, with the different services that we have out there and the MDMs, et cetera, they have all the support required to make sure that when they're buying the device today, they're going to get the support in the next 5 years in doing updates, upgrading an operating system, et cetera. So it's a device that's going to be future-proof as well.
So Android, we all know, is really taking over the market when it comes to just mobile devices, and I think a lot of it has to do with the cost, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at, MDM supports really every VAST of OS, if you will. So iOS, absolutely, but the cost of the devices is something that a lot of organizations are considering as they kind of make the switch from an older platform, whether it's Windows CE or Windows Mobile, et cetera, over to Android because of the cost of the devices and the total cost of ownership. So, at the executive level, typically they want those iOS devices, but then they start to break down the price and the cost of the devices, and they understand what they can both do, and a lot of them end up leaning towards the Android devices.
Yeah, and I think Google is doing a great job in the enterprise world. So they're bringing more and more updates, better platforms, and making sure the security concerns around Android are taken care of, et cetera. So even though like on the executive level, they normally consider iOS initially, I think when they put the pros and cons, Android is a great platform to run your device on, and it has a ton of benefits to migrate from previous platforms to Android, I would say.
Yeah. Absolutely. Another thing with Android versus iOS is not only the cost, but the the capabilities in the way you can manage those devices. Google or Android keeps it a little more open than iOS, which is fine, but that's another reason why folks are moving towards the Android platform as well.
Are you guys starting to see any other kind of paths or, pieces like that?
So in general with MDM, what we're seeing is not obviously Android, but yes, absolutely Windows Modern, the latest Windows devices that are out there, but also iOS. And then you got to think outside of just operating systems, right?
Yeah.
There's other devices other than just mobile devices.
Yeah.
You've got we'll call it iPhones and your Android phones. However, there's tablets out there, there's POS systems, there's laptops, signage, everything that runs on an operating system needs to be managed today. Really what it does is it streamlines the productivity, and it just makes the overall management and total cost of ownership that much easier. So we need to, organizations start with MDM really around mobile devices, but then it slowly expands outside and really holistically across their entire environment, as long as it has an operating system that's supported.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, MDM is probably the foundation around mobile devices, but with different devices out there like laptops and IoT devices, et cetera, MDM is the foundation to EMM, for example. So, connecting all sorts of devices that are managed, and then you can take the most out of it, so you're as productive as you can be by having different devices out there connected to each other as well.
Yeah, and a big piece is that, we're talking about mobile devices and all these different devices that are out there with operating systems. These can all be managed under one single pane.
Yeah.
One login, everything's right there. You can allocate everything based on how the groups should be represented within your organization, and it's a really simple way to manage your devices.
So guys, we were looking at security and MDM, right? But if you can include antivirus and software included in your license bundle for an MDM, I think that's a big win.
Yeah, I think another thing, a lot of organizations don't realize that hackers or folks that are trying to break into systems, they look at the most vulnerable devices that are out there. They're typically not going straight to the network. They're trying to find something that's connected to the network, and that could be mobile devices, where the MDM providing that security is another layer that will allow them to protect themselves.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think we keep seeing the increase in cyber attacks, phishing emails, et cetera, like different ways of them trying to get into the device. And like Jason was saying, maybe the mobile device is one of that's prone to an attack. So the MDMs offer different type of solution and tools that's going to help protect the device and the environment.
And that all goes back to the conversations we've been having around keeping everything up to date, patching, having the latest OS and all of that. So
The big point that I want to really stress is it's all about that reporting, and we have to know what's the environment's looking like today. From a quick glance into an MDM, we can actually see what are the OS builds, what's the level of the patch, so on and so forth. And then that's where if that device accidentally went out and it wasn't fully updated, again, the MDM tool can remotely do that, perform some updates, get the device compliant, and the device can stay in the field and in production.
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think data, it's an asset, right? So having all those reporting and all the information on hand is going to make you be more efficient when making decisions immediately. So all the devices you have out there, the operating system, the build, the security patch model version, who's using it, who's not. If the device, again, is lost or was stolen, you can immediately take action, et cetera. So, yeah, that's a great asset to have.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, thank you very much. This was a great conversation. I hope that we can, share this with a lot of our customers out there. But I want to really thank you guys for coming here today and talking mobile device management.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate
Thank you.
the time.